Hello, friends. What if a spoiled billionaire princess who never lifted a finger suddenly lost everything and had to scrub floors, cook meals, and survive in a freezing cabin with a mysterious, insanely handsome recluse? Isabelle is the ultimate rich girl. Luxury apartments, private jets, endless shopping. But after a disastrous hiking trip in the Swiss Alps, she gets lost in a blizzard and stumbles into Jeremy's isolated wooden cabin. With no phone, no money, and a sprained ankle, she's trapped for 2 weeks, and he makes her work as his maid. At first, they clash like fire and ice. But as she learns to chop wood, bake bread, and face her empty soul, the walls come down. Sparks fly, hearts heal, and this modern beauty and the beast romance turns into pure magic. This emotional 2013 hidden gem will make you laugh, cry, and believe in real change. Buckle up for the sweetest transformation ever. Let's jump straight into this heart-stealing love story right now. The movie's story begins with a girl named Isabelle. When she was 4 years old, her parents passed away, and since then, her uncle, Lyle, has taken care of her. Lyle, who never married and had no children of his own, always showered Isabelle with money instead of affection. As a result, Isabelle grew up to be a materialistic and pleasure-seeking woman. One day, after receiving a check from her uncle, Isabelle immediately goes shopping and buys expensive items. In addition to unnecessary shopping, she loves going to nightclubs and having fun with her friends. Shortly after, Isabelle's close friend, Catherine, enters the story. Unlike Isabelle, Catherine is a hardworking woman. Since Isabelle has no job, she often feels bored in her apartment and frequently calls her friends, including Catherine, who is busy working. She convinces Catherine to travel with her to Switzerland, tempting her with the promise of flying on her uncle's private jet and staying in a luxurious hotel. Upon their arrival, Isabelle suddenly becomes fascinated by a man named Jaro. While Catherine wants Isabelle to join her for a swim, Isabelle is busy spending time with Jaro, who has invited her to dinner. The next morning, Catherine wakes Isabelle up so they can go on the planned excursion. However, Isabelle is shocked to learn that they will be hiking in the forest, as she is used to skiing on designated slopes and relaxing at recreational spots. During the hike, Isabelle constantly complains about the conditions and wants to return to the hotel. However, Catherine refuses, which upsets Isabelle. She then starts reminding Catherine of how her uncle helped Catherine's sick mother. Tired of hearing this, Catherine tells Isabelle that she is a spoiled woman who always forces others to act according to her wishes. This argument causes them to separate. Catherine continues on her path, while Isabelle decides to return to the hotel, unfamiliar with the way back. Isabelle soon finds herself lost in the forest and even throws away her ski equipment in frustration. Along the way, she has an accident. Meanwhile, Catherine, still upset with Isabelle, decides to return to America. When Isabelle regains consciousness, she tries to call someone, but there is no signal deep in the forest. As a result, she is forced to keep moving despite her injuries. Her prolonged unconsciousness has made her body numb from the cold. After walking for a long distance, Isabelle spots a light in the distance, coming from a cabin. Hoping to find help, she moves toward it. However, when she receives no response, she finds the back door unlocked and enters. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a man named Henry realizes that Isabelle has traveled to Switzerland for a holiday on her private jet. There, Henry also advised Lyle to stop spoiling Isabelle. However, Lyle, feeling sorry for his niece, did not listen to his advice. In the end, Henry reported the matter to the company's secretary, Dana. The camera then shifts back to Isabelle, who wakes up in terror because a man named Jeremy has awakened her. Jeremy wants to throw Isabelle out of the cabin since she entered without permission and disturb his peace. However, Isabelle angrily protests and demands that Jeremy immediately provide her with food and painkillers. At first, Jeremy is surprised that she is treating him like a servant, but when he sees her condition, he feels sorry for her and reluctantly brings her food. After eating, Isabelle asks Jeremy to call an ambulance or a taxi to take her back to the hotel. However, in this remote area, Jeremy has neither a phone nor an internet connection. He does not even have a vehicle to take her to town. In fact, someone brings him essential supplies only once a month, and that person is not expected to return for another 2 weeks. With no other choice, Isabelle insists on staying in the cabin, as she cannot walk through the forest alone with her injured foot. After taking a bath and changing her clothes, Jeremy offers to check her injury. He bandages her sprained foot to speed up the healing process, which would likely take a few days. Curious about Jeremy, Isabelle begins exploring the cabin to find out what he is doing in such a remote place. Eventually, she discovers a small box containing photos from Jeremy's wedding and his academic degree. Isabelle realizes that Jeremy has a medical degree from a prestigious university. The next morning, when Isabelle wakes up, she suddenly notices Jeremy feeding wild birds. She also sees that he has built small birdhouses, which surprises her. She finds it strange that Jeremy has chosen to live in such a secluded place. During dinner, Isabelle once again complains about the taste of the food, and Jeremy immediately guesses that she is a spoiled girl who has always been pampered and supported by her family. Annoyed, Jeremy decides that the next day, Isabelle should cook lunch herself, as she has done nothing but complain the entire time she has been in his cabin, without even thanking him once. Bored and restless, Isabelle approaches Jeremy while he is praying and asks him to do something together. Fortunately, Jeremy has a chessboard in his cabin. While playing, Isabelle starts talking to Jeremy, trying to improve their relationship. Following Jeremy's instruction from the night before, Isabelle prepares lunch and attempts to cook a simple meal. However, when Jeremy tastes the food, it is unbearably spicy. Isabelle had mistakenly added chili powder instead of paprika. After failing in her first attempt, Isabelle offers Jeremy a cake she baked herself. But this cake turns out to be even worse than the previous dish. She had mistakenly used salt instead of sugar. When Isabelle's clothes get dirty from the spilled cake, Jeremy lends her some old clothes that belong to his ex-wife. Curious, Isabelle asks him about his marriage, and he explains that he officially divorced his wife 3 years ago. Jeremy had chosen to move to this remote cabin to be alone for a while, give himself time to heal, pray, and hope for a better future. After finishing his work chopping firewood, Isabelle once again brings up Jeremy's unusual habit of feeding wild birds. Inside the cabin, Jeremy helped Isabelle check the condition of her foot. It had improved slightly, but the swelling had not completely gone down yet. Since Jeremy was able to assess her condition, he finally admitted that he was a doctor who had not worked in a hospital for a long time. Jeremy then talked about dinner and decided to teach Isabelle how to cook so that she could prepare an edible meal the next day. During the night, Isabelle explained that she had come here for a vacation with her friend, Catherine. Both of them were from New York, but during their trip, they had an argument over something trivial. After they separated, Isabelle got lost in the forest and eventually arrived at this cabin. As children, Isabelle and Catherine always spent their holidays together because, coincidentally, Isabelle's uncle was a friend of Catherine's mother. Isabelle said that their friendship was like the relationship between a rich person and a poor one. Since she always flaunted her uncle's generosity, she eventually had a falling out with Catherine, who considered her spoiled. The next day, Isabelle accidentally found Jeremy's divorce papers. Inside the envelope, she discovered a letter from Jeremy's ex-wife, apologizing for their divorce and mentioning something related to medical negligence. Curious, Isabelle went back to the small box she had seen earlier. Inside, she found a letter stating that Jeremy's medical license had been revoked. In addition, she discovered a newspaper article revealing that Jeremy had been in the news for a medical mistake that led to a patient's death. While helping Jeremy collect the laundry, Isabelle accidentally knocked over a bird's nest and damaged it. Feeling guilty, she wanted to repair it, but Jeremy was furious, saying that the nest was very valuable to him. Upset by Jeremy's scolding, Isabelle brought up his past and blamed him for the medical mistake that had caused a girl's death. However, her words only made Jeremy even angrier, as Isabelle did not know the full truth. Because of this argument, Isabelle decided to leave the cabin. As she walked away, she reflected on what both Catherine and Jeremy had said, that she was spoiled and selfish. Meanwhile, Jeremy, feeling sorry for Isabelle, decided to go after her. When he found her, she was lost in the forest and shivering from the cold. Regretting her words, Isabelle apologized to Jeremy, admitting that she should not have pried into his past. At the same time, Jeremy also apologized to Isabelle, realizing that he should not have been so angry over a bird's nest that could be repaired. When Jeremy was still working as a doctor, he suddenly started experiencing severe headaches that lasted for days. One of his fellow doctors prescribed him strong painkillers, but Jeremy became addicted to them, leading to intense conflicts with his wife. One day, while performing surgery, Jeremy forgot that he had run out of his medication. As a result, he was unable to concentrate, and his patient lost their life. Following this incident, Jeremy was sent to a rehabilitation center due to his addiction. His wife, unable to tolerate the situation any longer, decided to leave him. After completing rehab, Jeremy chose to move to Switzerland and live alone in this remote cabin. Here, he reflected on his mistakes. Although he could not change the past and the patient's family would never forgive him, he tried to move forward with his life. His rehabilitation doctors advised him to find a new hobby. That's why he started building birdhouses to keep himself occupied. Isabelle finally apologized to Jeremy for disturbing his peace. She also talked about her parents, who had passed away, and explained that she had always been supported by her wealthy uncle. Since their conversation the previous day, Jeremy and Isabelle had grown closer, and they began doing various activities together. A few days later, Isabelle finally recovered from her injury, and they spent their days in peace and harmony. She even learned how to cook from Jeremy. One day, Jeremy came to Isabelle to inform her that someone would be arriving the next morning to deliver his supplies. He suggested that she take the same vehicle to the hotel, collect her belongings, and then return to America. Since it was Isabelle's last day at the cabin, she decided to cook a large meal to celebrate their farewell. Afterward, Jeremy and Isabelle talked about their past experiences, which brought them even closer, and eventually, they fell in love. Because of this closeness, Jeremy asked Isabelle to stay with him at the cabin. However, Isabelle did not want to leave her life in New York. Unfortunately, this conversation turned into an argument. The next morning, a man named Dirrit, who regularly delivered Jeremy's supplies, arrived. Jeremy asked him to take Isabelle to the hotel. Before she left, he told her to always take care of herself. After returning to America, Isabelle went straight to see Catherine to apologize to her. She also told her about the man who had taken care of her for 2 weeks. When Isabelle arrived at her uncle's office, she overheard 2 of his subordinates discussing her extravagant expenses. They were planning to reduce her monthly allowance. Surprisingly, Isabelle agreed with their decision. She had now become more aware of her mistakes. Living with Jeremy had changed her perspective, and she no longer enjoyed her previous lifestyle. She shared her feelings with Catherine and admitted that Jeremy had made her a better person. Isabelle also realized that she had fallen in love with Jeremy and deeply missed their days at the cabin. The next day, Isabelle helped her uncle with his charity work. Noticing that she was feeling down, her uncle asked her what was wrong. Isabelle finally confessed that she had met a man who had always been kind to her. She also admitted that she missed Jeremy. After hearing this, her uncle suggested that she travel to Switzerland and even offered his private jet for the trip. When Isabelle arrived at the cabin, she was met by Dirrit, who told her that Jeremy had just left for America. Upon hearing this, Isabelle asked Catherine to wait for Jeremy at her apartment. However, Jeremy had already gone to Isabelle's uncle's office to find out where she was. When Isabelle reached her apartment, Catherine told her that Jeremy had not arrived yet. Isabelle assumed that Jeremy no longer wanted to see her, but shortly after, Jeremy finally appeared and confessed his feelings to her. He proposed to Isabelle and asked her to give him another chance.